Welcome to our channel, Behind My Story. Please like, share, and subscribe.
My name is Carl, and I'm 15 years old. I used to be the team leader of the school's basketball team, and I was proclaimed the best player on the team for the past 2 years. Unfortunately, I developed a bad leg infection and had to quit playing, so I became the team's coach instead. A player named Frank assumed the team leader position when I transitioned to the coach position. He and I were not on good terms. In fact, we were downright enemies. Our team, which had won many championships in the past, began losing games under Frank's leadership because he refused to follow my guidance. Some team members requested that I rejoin the team, but I told them that my leg hadn't healed yet. I was still undergoing physical therapy to regain my leg's strength. After a few months, I was well enough to start joining the team's practice sessions. The team players all hugged me and were glad to see me getting back into shape to rejoin the team. Except for Frank, that is. Frank was not pleased at all. I saw the hatred in his eyes when he realized I was going to come back and take the team leader position again. He said that I'd been off the team too long to be allowed to return to it as a team leader again. I told him that my infection was something that was beyond my control. He reminded me that there was a school tradition that one could challenge another for the team leader position by a show of bravery, which was to jump from a cliff into a lake below. So he challenged me to make that jump. If I could do it, then he would gladly relinquish his team leader position to me and give me $1,000 to boot. He was so confident because he knew that I had a fear of heights. He also knew that if I didn't accept his challenge, then I would be in an untenable position as far as all the team members were concerned, so I had no choice but to accept his challenge. He scheduled the challenge date and invited the team to watch the challenge. I was terrified, but it was now a matter of pride and dignity and a test of my mettle. My reputation was at stake. I arrived at the lake first, then the team members one by one, and then Frank arrived last. He handed the money to one of the players and said that if I couldn't make the jump, then he, Frank, would keep the money and remain the team leader. I went up to the top of the cliff and looked down. I had a moment of vertigo. I thought of backing out, but I heard the team chanting my name over and over and knew that I couldn't let them down. Their support emboldened me, and my fear lessened. I closed my eyes, screwed up my courage, and jumped. I had a feeling of having wings and flying through the air. It was only the blink of an eye before I crashed into the water feet first and went deep. Amazed that I had survived the jump, I began swimming rapidly upwards. When my head broke the surface, I enjoyed the delicious sight of incredulity on Frank's face. So I won the challenge, collected Frank's money, and was reinstituted as a team leader. The team's support gave me the courage to face my phobia and overcome my fear.
Hi, my name is Selena. I'm 19 years old, and I'm just crazy about basketball. I follow all the sports news, the star players, and the league statistics. I know the names of all the famous players around the world. My friends were amused by this because their interests ran more towards makeup, fashion, singers, and movie stars. I thought those girl things were just outright vain, shallow, frivolous, and downright silly to tell the truth. The college's basketball team coach was forced to take leave due to a chronic illness, leaving the team without a coach. Due to my high school reputation and widely recognized basketball expertise, I was asked if I wanted to serve as the basketball team's temporary coach. I had always dreamed of someday becoming a coach for a famous basketball team, so I jumped at the opportunity. School leagues presented opportunities for players to show what they've got and maybe get scouted by a professional league team. It was also my chance to start as a college basketball coach. By studying the opposing team's previous games, I analyzed their strategies and learned their strengths and weaknesses. I was able to excel and drive my team to an undefeated streak of winnings. We won the college league championship. I was selected to train a team in a professional league with another famous coach. It was an incredible opportunity for me to up my game a notch. During this time, I met an opposing team's coach named Jacob, who was something of a genius when it came to winning basketball strategies. He shared the same dreams as mine. He bragged that his team was better than mine. Well, I couldn't ignore the gauntlet he threw at my feet, so I challenged him to a game. My team against his, in the upcoming season, and may the best team win. If my team won, he would acknowledge me as a superior coach, and vice versa. The season began, and both our teams began beating all our opponents. I used these victories to hone my coaching skills to the next level. Both our teams were undefeated until the day we were to face each other in a championship game. The game began, and both teams played hard. We stayed closely matched the entire game. In the final few seconds of play, one of their players got past our defense. He scored a buzzer beat. I was crushed and began to cry, but my team's fans in the stadium broke into a loud applause. They began chanting my name, acknowledging that I have given them a great competitive, entertaining game. Jacob came over to me. I figured he came to gloat, but instead, he got down on one knee and presented me with an engagement ring. I was in shock. The stadium cheered even louder. I may have lost the game that day, but for some reason, I felt like a winner.
Hi there. I'm Andrew and I'm 23 years old. I'm a student in a medical college. I'm studying to become a doctor because it's my lifelong dream to find a cure for cancer. I want to save people's lives from the scourge of this disease. This war became personal for me when my mom fell victim to it. Mom fainted one day and we took her to a doctor who took some x-rays and diagnosed that she had lung cancer. Eventually, she succumbed to it and passed away. After that, I swore that I would find a cure for this hateful, evil curse on mankind. I began researching every book I could find on the subject, including old medical texts and foreign research papers and journals. One ancient tomb I perused mentioned a little-known, rare herb that grows high in the Himalayan mountains in China that was said to be able to reverse the effects of cancer damage. Heartened by this discovery, I set up a small expedition to go find said herb no matter the effort and no matter the cost. I completed my preparations and enlisted the help of one of my colleagues. The journey to the base of the mountains was tiring and difficult, and the trek up the mountainside was long and arduous. Once we reached the Tibetan plateau, we began searching for this rare, wondrous herb. We queried the members of a local nomadic tribe living there for clues. Luckily, their old shaman was familiar with the herb and told us where to look. Following his directions, we found it at long last. But finding it was only part of the battle. We returned home to my lab. I then had to see if I could extract a cure from it. The research and testing would take time, money, and effort. After months and months of experimentation and trials, suffering failure after failure, I ultimately achieved success by sheer persistence and luck. I formulated a cure for cancer in my lab. What a momentous day for humanity this was. I couldn't wait to publicize my findings in the medical journals and tell the world that cancer had finally been conquered. Then just 2 days later, I received a mysterious phone call from an unknown person with a gravelly voice who threatened me with death if I were to publicize my findings. I was shocked that someone would want to block a cure for cancer at the expense of millions of cancer deaths in the years to come. And so, here I stand in my lab, unafraid and unswayed. I will publish my findings, and I will let the world know about this miracle cure. If my life should prove to be the cost of saving posterity from the continuing ravages of cancer, then so be it. I will gladly pay that cost. My name is Jerry. I am the village dreamer who touched the poor suffering in pain. In my country, illness is a monster that eats its victim's soul without mercy. I decided to be the soul saver, or the savior of souls. Heroes in my country don't wear superhero costumes. Rather, they wear white lab coats with stethoscopes hanging around their necks. I knew how difficult it was to become a doctor, but I was up for the challenge, so I enrolled in a medical college. The studies were challenging, but my creed in life is this: an opportunity may only come around once. You must take it or leave it. After graduation, I was hired to work in a government hospital in my village. Unfortunately, I discovered early on that my knowledge level wasn't broad enough, so I traveled to England to expand my knowledge base. I wanted to take advantage of the experience of the professional doctors there, so I attended difficult surgeries and observed and studied them intently. My mind was like a sponge, absorbing vast amounts of empirical data. Even so, I still wasn't satisfied with my knowledge level, so I traveled to the USA. When I arrived in Chicago, I felt like a thirsty man who had an oasis in the desert. I encountered advanced technologies, modern, new medical equipment, leading-edge ways of treating heart disease, serious heart disease cases, and fantastic anecdotal stories from famous doctors about their most unusual cases. I dreamed of being a great doctor like them, and my opportunity came when a baby girl was diagnosed with a serious heart illness. She was not expected to live long, so I volunteered to perform some risky surgery on her. All the doctors around me thought I was crazy, but I knew that I could do it. After 5 hours of arduous concentration, focus, stress, and sweating under the operating room lamps, the surgery concluded successfully. I had proven myself to be a great doctor after all. Afterwards and subsequent surgeries, I became known as the guardian angel who saved souls. I gathered a huge following due to my successes. I was surprised when my surgery techniques later became required studies in my country. I became a role model for many aspiring medical students. I returned home to thank my country by building a heart hospital that treated people for free. Many people donated to my cause. My hospital saved many souls, but this is a never-ending mission. My country bestowed upon me the honorable title of the Prince of Hearts. Will you donate to my cause? Hi there. I'm Marco and I'm 21 years old. I was born and raised in one of the poorest neighborhoods in my city. I tried to find a decent hobby at a young age that might lead me into earning a living. I found my passion when I began working in the computer field. I fell in love with technology. Because of my intelligence, I became famous in a short span of time. I could identify computer problems and resolve them immediately. I became wealthy, but my greed couldn't be satisfied. I want to get richer quicker, so I became a hacker. I experimented and played around trying to crack various low-level security systems. Then one day, I decided it was my time to up my game by trying to hack into banks and websites. My first challenge in my new career was to hack into my local bank. Banks have strong computer security systems, but I was able to breach their security protocols and breach their security defenses. I honed my skills and developed a hacking program that could hack any website without leaving a trace of evidence. I hacked into the bank's funds and transferred a huge amount of money to my account. In the morning, the news announced that the bank had been hacked by an unknown person. There were no leads in this case. I wanted to boast to people that I was the hacker who had cracked that bank, but I was too smart to do that. My next challenge was to hack into my country's national banking system, a higher-level security system. It took me a couple of attempts, but I succeeded in the end by transferring a hefty sum of money into my account. The whole city was abuzz talking about the phantom hacker who was stealing money from banks with impunity and without leaving a clue. My third challenge was the Ministry of Finance. I tried to breach their website a few times, but I failed each time. After some investigation, I learned that they had a Russian security expert in charge of their security, and he was very good indeed. As a matter of pride, I took it upon myself to make beating him my personal goal in life, like an equal opponent in chess. We began playing our game. I would try to hack in, and he would block me. This back and forth game continued for a little while, until one day he sent me a message. Got you! Suddenly, my computer shut down. Soon afterwards, the police showed up at my door and arrested me. So here I sit in prison. But the chess game between myself and my Russian adversary is not over yet. I will finish my prison term and come back for a rematch someday. It's a matter of personal pride now.
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm 23 years old, and I teach art. I recently got married to the love of my life, Norman. I considered him my friend, my brother, my son, and my husband. We loved to prank each other, even after we got married. For instance, one time I turned off all the lights in the apartment, dressed up as a monster, and scared the living daylights out of him when he came back from the store. Another time, he damaged my car. I put mayonnaise on his toast. I did worry sometimes that our jokes might go too far. I mean, he did get really mad at me once. He stopped talking to me for 2 days, even though I apologized profusely many times. After that, our pranks sort of stopped. I figured our pranking days were over. About a month later, I returned home to find a letter on the floor. I opened it and read it. If you don't pay us 100,000 by Friday, we will kill Norman. I smiled. Norman was pranking me again. When he returned home, I hugged him and showed him his prank letter. He read it carefully, and his brow furrowed. He appeared seriously frightened and swore that this was not part of any prank. He told me that we needed to leave town as soon as possible. I asked him why, and he told me that before he married me, he had stolen a gold statue from a motorcycle gang. I asked him why he couldn't just return it with an apology, and he told me that the statue was worth a lot of money and could make us really wealthy. That night, an armed masked burglar broke into our apartment and confronted us with a gun. He said to Norman, "Hello, Norman, long time no see. You need to choose between the statue or your wife. Choose now." Norman was hesitant. Then he steadfastly said, "I can't give up the statue. Take my wife." The masked man turned towards me. He pointed the gun at me in a threatening manner. I was frantic. I was staring at Norman in shock. Suddenly, the masked man ripped off his mask. It was Keanu, Norman's brother. Norman sat down, laughing so hard he could hardly stop to breathe. Between laughs, he said, "This is payback for the last prank of yours. I was so mad at him that day, but it's all right. He doesn't know what I have planned for him." Soccer is an obsession for people who like to bet, argue, and boast about whose team is best. My name is Jacqueline, and I'm 25 years old. I grew up in a family whose male members were crazy about soccer. They were fanatical fans of the Liverpool club team. We all knew the club had gone through some difficult seasons over the past few years, but it looked like they may have finally assembled a formidable team now. I, myself, wasn't interested in soccer, but Dad and my brothers were obsessed with it and would hit the ceiling whenever their team lost. I wished to live far away from all this, but at this point, it wasn't an option. After finishing high school, I went to an out-of-state college just to distance myself from all that hooting and hollering at home on game days. At college, I met someone. His name was Fred. We took the same classes and made an excellent team. Later on, he proposed, and I accepted. During college break, he visited so he could meet my family. It happened to be on a Liverpool soccer game day. That's when I learned that Fred was the same. In fact, he was even crazier than Dad and my brothers. It looked like he cared more about that team than anything else. It was the final match of the season. Everyone was excited about the game. I made a few bowls of popcorn for everyone to eat while watching the game. The two teams were about equally matched, and the score was tied. Suddenly, I heard angry shouts, so I went into the living room to see what had happened. The other team had scored a goal, and one of its players had fouled a Liverpool player. Then, they scored 2 more goals in quick succession. Fred lost it and began beating loudly on the coffee table. Then, he inexplicably lost consciousness and fell flat on his face. We took him to the hospital, where he spent 3 days in the intensive care. The doctor told us that he had had a heart attack, but he would be okay. After he recovered, he promised me that he wouldn't lose his temper over a soccer game again. Today, we are watching the final match between Liverpool and Tottenham. I have the ambulance phone number on speed dial just in case. Hi there. I am Matilda, and I'm 24 years old. My story starts just before Thanksgiving, when I decided to visit and spend a few days with my grandparents. Their house was in an old neighborhood, near a graveyard, that people only whispered about in small circles. But I wasn't interested in all the rumors. I liked to visit graveyards, to enjoy their peaceful landscapes and time-honored history. I was always welcome at my grandparents' house. My granny prepared me the chocolate drink I like. Grandpa baked me the biscuits with his magic recipe. We spent all day talking, laughing, and playing. My father was an archaeologist. He was crazy about antiques, so he had a room like a small museum. He collected a lot of things that were rare in that room. We used to sit in this room, and my grandfather would tell me stories about every antique, except for one painting of an old woman. I used to ask him about it, but he never told me what it was. As I was sleeping in the room, which was next to our little museum, I heard whispering. I opened the door and looked around. It was coming from my father's museum. I searched around the room to find out the source of the voice. I couldn't believe it. The eyes and mouth in the old painting were moving, and I heard, "There's danger in the backyard." I ran, frightened, to my grandparents' room. My grandfather asked me what happened, and I told him. I thought he would mock me, but he brought his gun and went quickly to the backyard. He told me if he didn't return within 15 minutes, I should call the police. Suddenly, I heard shots. I thought that something bad happened to my grandfather, but he entered the house and told us that the thieves ran away. They still wouldn't tell me about the painting, but I don't think I needed an explanation anymore.